It's February the 28th, 2023, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I am Gerissar, a WoW esports aficionado.
Hey, I'm TreesapJake, and I'm an elemental shaman enthusiast. And today we're really happy to have Borngood with us, who is a rank 1 Holy Paladin that's competed in the AWC just a few times, I think. But I'm going to leave it up to him to say all the good stuff. So, Borngood, why don't you take it away, buddy?
Hey guys, so I'm Borngood. You can call me Borngood, Born, Josh, whatever you would like. I've been competitively PvPing for about 8 years now, playing Arena for 15 years since the original Burning Crusade, and playing WoW since vanilla. Your listeners can often find me streaming on Twitch or, in various WoW PvP Twitch channels on Twitter and in game.
Awesome. You're just like everywhere then.
Yeah, I've been around.
Yeah.
Know all the people.
Okay. Sometimes I get this, and I have to ask, what made you come up with the name Borngood? Was it just
That's
like
a great question.
I was curious about where these names come from.
So I was 12, and I basically went into the character creation, and for whatever reason, my 12-year-old brain was like, I don't know, just made the name. No particular reason.
All right. You weren't
So
like
because you were, Borngood.
Yeah.
So there's the two meanings, right? It could either be like you were born, good at the game, or maybe you were born like you're aligned good, like you're your person, like if it's like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, like there's a couple different ways you could take it, but honestly,
Yeah,
not really too sure myself. So it's whatever you want.
I like it. It's amazing from the brain of a 12-year-old to now a expert
28-year-old
28 okay, I wasn't gonna. Wow. Whew.
A brain. It's certainly a brain, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now you're. That's awesome. So
I've got a question, actually. I've got a question.
Okay.
Speaking about D&D, what class would you pick then of yourself now as you play a paladin? Would that translate? Would that translate into D&D? Just out of curiosity, more than anything.
So this is kind of interesting because I've been a long time fan of Critical Role, because they started out streaming on Twitch, and then they kind of like blew up for a long time. And I didn't really ever play Dungeons and Dragons or that sort of thing, but the two classes that I find like really cool, I do like rogues, but everyone complains that they're OP in that game. And then also I think it's Bard. Yeah, Bard. The one that you have like a lot of magic and you sing songs to people and that sort of thing is really cool. Those are the two that I like. Yeah.
So you'd be like a rogue bard hybrid of
that's like a multi-classing thing, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
multi-classing.
Yeah.
You'd be stabbing them and you'd be singing to them as they die.
Yeah, that's definitely something that could happen and probably has happened at some point.
That's very glam rock.
That sounds like something that Supatis would do.
Yes. Oh my god, yes.
That is what he's doing.
Yeah.
He does that all the time.
The one thing that I loved about that little story is the fact that immediately it was like, and rogues are overpowered in Dungeons and Dragons. And the first thing I thought I was like, oh, another game where everybody complains that rogues are overpowered.
Oh.
Huh. But we'll get into that in a bit once we get to the news. But I want to do Need, Greed, and Pass first and see what Jake came up with for this week. Right after I do the bumper. Here we go.
This likely won't be a clean fight, so keep your distance, eh?
Yeah, you'd think I'd be on top of this by now. It's only been 175 episodes. 174. All right, Jake, what do you got for Need, Greed, and Pass, man?
So I was thinking about this. Obviously, we've been talking about, we do Need, Greed, and Pass every single time we do the podcast. And I keep trying to think outside the box for my Need, Greed, and Pass. And I want to do something that's interesting. And so when I thought about Holy Pala, I thought about my most recent experiences with Holy Paladin. And the one thing that came to mind was Season 4 BFA. With Ineffable Truth, and that was the one that's burned into my retina, burned into my brain. I hear Holy Pala and I think, oh, cooldown reduction. That's kind of the thing that I've kind of sort of really from the amount of times that I've queued in BFA. So I thought, why not talk? Let's think about borrowed powers for H Paladin in general. So, I mean, admittedly, I don't know much about the Legion weapon system, but it's in there. So, the Legion abilities that you got from there, corruptions, and the Shadowlands Covenants. So, we're talking about Ashen Hollow, Divine Hammer Throwy thing. Oh, the name has gone out of my head.
Divine Toll.
That's it. Divine Toll. That's what I'm talking about. So those are the three. Like, if you could pick one to like need, that would be like in the kit. Like, let's say in the talent system now, replace Divine Toll with this option. That would be your need. Greed would be, okay, you know what? I'd settle for this, and then pass. You don't want it. So,
so if I understand correctly, you're saying you're gonna, if they were to remove all the board power systems out of the Holy Power or out of the Holy Paladin, but you can only keep one.
Yes.
Which one would it be? That's what you're asking?
That's basically what my knee greed passes for today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So imagine like the most broken aspect of those systems from Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you want to go first, go for it.
Yeah,
am I not supposed to go first?
If you want to.
I would love to, because I'm just sitting here laughing the whole time, because BFA Season 4, the Corrupted Season, was one of my favorite seasons of all time, because it was hilarious to play in. So, need for me, it's going to be Corruptions. I think it was just super cool. Maybe it was kind of not balanced very well, but at least they tried, right? And it was really fun. I think fun is kind of what the core of what I'd be looking for in terms of like when I'm thinking about, a need greed pass sort of situation. Greed, I'm gonna go with the Shadowlands Covenants, and I'll tell you why. I think there's some really cool abilities. I think Divine Toll is cool, and I really do like Blessing of Seasons as an ability too, and we have them both now. So that'd be my greed, and the pass is gonna be that Legion weapon system, because I remember pretty much that weapon system. You gain like 3 buttons, I believe, 2 or 3 buttons, and there was like no choice. Like, you kind of just got them. It was kind of not that exciting, but that would be my need greed pass.
All right. I like it.
I expected this.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I think so. I think this is probably my lack of knowledge on the Legion weapon system for Holy Palace. So I'm going to change things up. So for us, Gerissar, when we talk about ours, let's go from the perspective of our classes, so that we might get a potentially different answer. I feel.
I hate you. Now I have to completely rethink my whole. See, I have to say, I like the abilities that were in the weapon system. I dislike the fact that the weapon system was very fixed, just like you were saying, Born, how you built the weapon, and at the end there was no real choice. It was just a linear system.
Yeah.
But I like the abilities that came out of those. So, but damn it, Jake. Now I have to think.
Sorry.
All right.
Well, you can do the H Pala one first, and then what would you do for your actual class?
Well, so just a reminder, the Legion weapon system for Holy Paladin, I believe it was Tears Deliverance, which we also have right now. And then there is Power of the Silver Hand, which we also have as well. Neither are played at the moment, so that should kind of clue you in on why I passed on it. But yeah.
No, fair. I can't even remember what. I can't remember what the weapons system was added from Legion into Warlock. That's the thing.
I know. This is why I've thrown this in, because I was like, I know from mine.
Which spec of Warlock? Because like Demo is like Thalkiel's Consumption,
Affliction. I can't remember what Affliction was. I don't think it was Malefic Rapture. That was from Shadowlands. So, anyways, I'll say I can. Yeah, it was. Just because I can't remember, I'm gonna have to pass on Legion weapon systems. I honestly wish we could get back to Corruptions, because Warlock, I mean, just like Destro. Honestly, I switched to Destro just because it was too much fun. I had to. So I'm gonna, but I gotta say, some of the Shadowlands Covenants, some of the abilities came from those were so much fun. So now I'm just to be different. I'm gonna say I'm gonna need on the Covenants. I'm gonna pass, or I'm gonna agree on the corruptions, but I'm gonna have to pass on the Legion weapon system, only because I can't remember what they are.
Fair enough.
That is fair. That is fair.
I think if they were really exciting, you would remember it.
Yes, probably.
True. Very
True
true.
story. How about you,
That is-
Jake? Though, what
Well,
are yours?
I actually have a different answer, and this is why I'm glad that I said let's do it for our own specs, because I feel like for Holy Pala, there's absolutely no way I'm going to disagree with Borngood. I'm just,
Really?
well, I mean, like, it makes sense. Like because like when you think Holy Pala, Corruptions, that BFA season was bonkers. It was nuts. It was awesome. As you say, it's really fun.
Mhm.
So I'm coming at it from the Ellie point of view. I'm going to say I'm actually going to need Legion weapon system and I'm going to say why. Because without it, we wouldn't have Stormkeeper, and Stormkeeper is a wonderful,
Fair.
wonderful ability.
Yep.
So I'm going to need it. So I'm going to need Legion weapon system, because without it, we wouldn't have that. I'm then going to greed the Shadowlands Covenants, because Primordial Wave is a wonderful, wonderful ability as well. I love them both. I love Shadowlands. I liked the design concepts for. I don't love Shadowlands, but just to caveat that, I liked. I like the design choices for Ellie in that expansion. It was awesome. And then I'm going to pass on Corruptions, because if I say yes to Corruptions, that means that other classes have to have Corruptions. And then that means Asa Rogues get Gushing Wounds back again. And I'll pass on that. Thank you very much.
That's fair.
Huh.
That's fair.
Yeah, that is trauma for me, I think. I wake up in cold sweats.
Although I will say, when you think about corruptions for Holy Paladin, I want to mention this. Most people think about the CDR one, but actually my favorite one was playing half CDR, half Gushing Wounds, because you could proc Gushing Wounds on Holy Paladin with your Holy Lights. It was really funny.
Really? Could you actually? I had no idea about that.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. I would queue 2v2, and I would be doing the most damage in the arena. It was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. So I'm enlightened however many years later.
Wow. That whole corruptions and just all the different things you like, the customization was really fun.
Yep.
Especially once you could actually get access to all of them and not the rotating vendor or rotating weeks and all that. That was dumb. But yeah, at the end it was a lot of fun. All right. Well, just a reminder, everybody at home, if you want to join in on the Need, Greed, and Pass, head on over to the Discord. We'll have a thread there in our channel. If you're listening right now, go ahead and throw it up into the Twitch chat. Or if you don't want to do either of those, email us, Twitter us, whatever. In the meantime, we're going to talk about the upcoming PvP events.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
Upcoming PvP events. So right now we're back to just doing the Blizzard events. So MDI, we have Group C coming up this weekend, which is going to be followed by the MDI Last Stand, which is going to be the last chance for somebody to sneak in the wild card position for the grand finals there. And then following up to that, we're going to have the AWC Gauntlet, which is going to be the top or the bottom 4 teams.
I can explain if you would like. So basically, it's a grueling. It's places 4 through 8. So 8 fights 7. Whoever wins moves on to fight the 6 guys, so on and so on. And then whoever gets through that gauntlet, they go to the finals.
Yes, and that's the 4th spot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So yeah, so everybody's going to be fighting for that 4th spot. So that's going to be awesome. And then the grand finals for that is going to be the 1st and the 2nd of April. So, hoo-ha! Looking forward to that. I'm actually really excited to see how that goes. And then beyond that, I know there's going to be an MDI Grand Finals. We don't know the exact date for that. And that's all that we know for the actual upcoming PvP events. I do want to just kind of throw in a little curveball. I just got partnered with Matt Chirino today so we're going to actually be able to start hosting tournaments through Matt Chirino and have the partnerships directly to the sponsors. So stay tuned. No actual dates yet, but I'm looking forward to putting some other community events up there hosted by Technically PvP. All right. On that.
So, quick question then. Does that mean we get to cast the events?
Yeah, we can. I actually will be looking for people to help me cast because you don't want to hear Gerissar going. And he used the button and watch the health bar. It's going. Oh, the health bar came back up. I guess. It looks like Borngood was able to get off his holy light. I mean, his flash of light. I mean, holy shock.
I'm gonna give you one. The Asarogue step kicked him. He blinded him full. The healer trinketed. Oh, it's an Asarogue. He death marked him. He's dead. Oh.
Oh, game's over. Actually, Jess, I want to see that. That's the kind of casting that I want to see, and it's like I think that would be funny.
Why? I'll have to put on a clown face then, just to make sure everybody knows that I'm clowning.
I mean, it's technically PvP, right? So it's technically casting too. There we go.
I love it. And yes, they use the buttons, all the buttons. And Born, thank you very much for recapping what felt like my solo shuffle the other night. I appreciate that.
Mine too, buddy. Don't worry.
Well, instead of talking about death marks, why don't we actually talk about what buttons the Holy Paladin can press to keep people alive?
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
A few of those.
Just a couple. All right. Well, subject analysis. We're here with, let's say, the foremost and a PvP Holy Pally. I think. Are you number one or are you top?
No,
you're the top
no,
10.
No. I play as much as I can, but there are some ladder grinders out there. I would say look out for there's a paladin that's been up and coming. His name's Dizzle, and also Brain. He plays in the AWC. Yeah. Those are the couple I've been seeing doing really well on ladder. Those guys.
Okay.
But I'm up there. We're doing
well,
good.
I know you're up there. I didn't look at the ladder recently to see. I'm usually looking at other people like those darn Asarogues. But anyways, enough about those. Yeah, so seriously, for those who don't really understand, you want to give us kind of like how does Holy Paladin play? Like, I remember they're not like a regular healer where you're sitting back of the pillar just hucking spells. Like I always see them running in and doing stuff and running out and running back in. Like, are they? I mean, you're the Holy Paladin, the holy warrior, if you will, right? Are you going in there and smacking things, or are you like every time you run in, do you butt clench and hope that you don't die on the way out?
So there's one ability that got introduced in Legion actually called Avenging Crusader.
Yep.
And it's been around for a long time, but it's been in and out of the meta depending on how strong it was. Over the years, it started really strong in Legion, and then it got nerfed over and over. But then it came back this expansion, and like you gained a few things to make it really strong, like 2 charges of Crusader Strike and a few other things, but if you're playing a Holy Paladin right now, you're probably going to be playing the Avenger Crusader talent, which I'll refer to as melee wings, right? You're playing kind of like a bruiser type healer. You're going to be playing pretty offensive with your cooldowns and positioning. You're going to be getting in there, smacking some people. You're using your Crusader Strikes, your Rebukes, your crowd control. I like to call it the dance of melee wings because you're running in, right? But then your melee wings fade, you're running out, you're going back in, right? Yeah. It's kind of like you're going with kind of the flow of the match, and that's kind of how you play the melee wings part. But there's also a different side of Holy Paladin that we've seen a lot in the past over the years. It's kind of like the caster build or using the regular wings talent of Avenging Wrath.
Okay.
And you're kind of playing a pretty defensive play style of Holy Paladin. You kind of want to position yourself, like 30 to 60 yards away from the fight due to a talent called Rule of Law. And you kind of use pillars and line of sight. It plays more of like a traditional healer in terms of like healing.
All right. I seem to remember seeing a lot of people, more recent streamers always, that more aggressive style, you're being up there, the warrior in the fray. Yep. I know a lot of people talk about that for solo shuffle. It's like, oh my God, where's the Holy Paladin? Oh, just look for the glowing light in the middle of the fight, right? So
yeah.
Okay.
It's a fun time.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's just kind of curious, which one's your preferred?
It has to be melee wings because the dopamine rush you get when you kick something really important, you get like a clutch crowd controlled someone, like you're helping your team out with damage. Like I've always found that more aggressive play style more fun for me and kind of rewarding than kind of the sit back and play super defensive, kind of put the enemy team into a stranglehold sort of position like we've seen technically from Resto Druids a lot in the past, but that's just more of my preferred play style and what I find fun.
Nice. That does sound like a lot of fun.
I think it's awesome because also it sort of sets you a bit apart from everyone. Like you're all this sort of like plate shield wearing sort of healer that kind of runs in and just kind of slaps people. It's kind of like in the same way that Fistweaver had its own identity apart from like other healers, and I think that's kind of what is awesome about the playstyle.
Yeah, I love it. Fistweaver performs similarly. Obviously, very different mechanics, but I believe it's Wings Paladin, Fistweaver, and Disc Priest that do the damage dealing for healing. Pretty much, that Disc Priest would be atonement for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like the identity of it is what I think is awesome. I think more healers need to have that sort of identity, really.
I think being able to have the choice is actually really interesting, especially for PvP. May see more of that in the future for other specs. You never know.
Yeah, of course.
Indeed. All right. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's actually delve into this. Let's talk about what is actually there. I mean, really, it's the talents. The talents is what makes a spec run, makes it important. We don't have time to talk about every single talent, right? We'd be here for hours. But let's talk first. I guess the left side, the generic tree. What are your talents of import? What are the ones that are the must-haves that you recommend any paladin take, and maybe the ones that are choice ones but are also still equally important?
The first one that pops into my mind is going to be the crowd control node, which is Repentance versus Blinding Light. You're pretty much going to be taking Blinding Light in most situations. It's just really versatile in how you can use it. Like you can use it offensively, defensively. The thing with Repentance that I don't really like this expansion is with the CC reduction trinket bonus, you're less rewarded for getting that clutch Repentance off these days. So just having that Blinding Light option, and actually a lot of the time with Blinding Light, I just end up blinding a bunch of demo pets or something, and it ends up being really nice. to be frank,
Interesting.
a couple other talents that I've kind of found like really clutch for Holy Paladin on the left side here. I mean, the main ones are going to be your blessings, like sacrifice and protection. You know, you've had those for a long time in your toolkit, so those are kind of like important ones there. And I mean, you got your wings. I'd say one that I really like that doesn't get too much attention is going to be Zealot's Paragon on the bottom right of the Paladin tree, on the left side. So it's the Hammer of Wrath and Judgment, deal 10% additional damage, and it extends the duration of your Avenging Wrath or your melee wings by half a second. And I really like the design of that talent because it kind of rewards you from hitting your judgments on cooldown, hitting your Hammer of Wraths on cooldown. It's a well-designed talent that you get rewarded for kind of using your rotation to its like optimal potential, sort of thing.
I like it. Why does that one get much attention?
Because it's just a passive. You know, it's kind of just there, but it's actually beautifully designed.
Interesting. That's funny because I find like a lot of people, it's always that hard conversation. Like some people prefer the passives because then they don't have to think about it. It's just, like you said, beautiful design. It's sitting there. It's doing its thing. And some other people really want to try to have that button so when they press something, they feel like it does something. I guess just quickly, how did that feel with Paladin? Do you feel like there's a lot of buttons where it's like there's almost too many, or is there just enough? Or do you feel like having that choice of another button to push, would that be like kind of putting it over the top? You know what I mean?
I would say for the most part, and the Paladin talent tree is getting a pretty large rework. The left side, that is. The Holy Paladin tree isn't getting that much, but there's a few adjustments. But I would say for the most part, there's pretty much two things that Holy Paladin's kind of lacking rotationally. One thing would be a ranged Holy Power spender that's not Word of Glory. So right now, if you want to do damage with your Holy Power, you have to be in melee range with your Shield of the Righteous, which you never really press now in PvP because it's more of like an AoE ability. That's melee range. So that's one thing Holy Paladins are kind of missing in their rotation right now, is a way to spend their Holy Power on damage. And then the second in PvP, like from range. And then the second thing, you're really missing using your infusion procs with like Flashlight and Holy Light, especially with the Mitherlings build, because I I just feel like the most fun design for Infusion of Light, like just strictly from like Wrath of the Lich King, from BFA, like you had instant cast Flashlights with your infusion procs, you had fast cast Holy Lights from BFA, like there needed to be some type of redesign with infusion this expansion to like make the spec more fun to play, and that's kind of the two things. It's kind of like would have been a no-brainer to me, but here we are.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe
it's a shame
they'll
that.
put something in. Pardon me, Jake?
You never know.
I'll just say it's a shame that really, isn't it? Because I feel like with most specs, like I think Dragonflight, they've done a fantastic job with the talent trees, like wholeheartedly, regardless of balancing. I think they've done a really great job for a lot of classes. I think there are some things that they definitely could change. Having played it, like there's definitely some things that could change, but I think the design in total is wonderful. It's a great new era of WoW. It's just a shame that like certain classes for PvP, especially as we've noticed, just are kind of lacking those certain bits and pieces, and I guess that probably comes from a PvE standpoint as well. Because obviously they're thinking about that with the talent trees as well. It isn't just for PvP. I feel like there's definitely those things that are changed there. Like for example, the one that I think of for Shaman is that they're changing the route in which you get your Earth Shield for Shaman. I think in 10.0.7, and it means that for us, I don't think we're actually as an Elemental Shaman able to get the Earth Shield and Lightning Shield at the same time, the Elemental Warding, I think it is. So that's changing, and that's kind of like a nerf in a way for us, because we have to basically put our points into chain heal in order to get it. And it's kind of like there are certain changes there that maybe that wasn't necessary. Maybe that's more of a PvE change, or
that was the they're readjusting the positioning in the trees, you mean, right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. So for me, it's kind of like it would be nice if there was some, if they like kind of consideration in there, but sometimes it doesn't feel like that. So annoyingly.
I just want to add real quickly. There's one thing I think's being experimented with. This 10.07 patch that's coming up here for Paladins. I think in the left class tree they're adding spec specific talents. I think one of them's like Unbound Freedom or something like that. But I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work out, because are you only going to have red specific talents in that class tree, or are you going to put in a Holy Paladin one? It's not entirely fleshed out yet, as far as I know. So
I mean, that's interesting. That's definitely an interesting concept, isn't it? Like the idea that it changes depending on which. Oh, I mean, it makes sense. Like it definitely makes sense. But I don't know. That's that. I'd be very interested to see how that turns out, I guess, in the end.
Interesting. How many talents are there that are like that, where it'd be like, this is only ret and this is only prot and this is only holy? Like,
I don't think there's any that I know of.
Yeah.
But I'm mostly focused on Paladin, so that's why I brought it up. I'm like, they're kind of switching a little bit of their talent philosophy here, I think, soon here. Like they're testing it out maybe with Paladin, so we'll see kind of how that works.
Interesting. That will be interesting. Because I think I can't think of a spell that I don't, I can't think of a talent or something that is like only one spec kind of thing.
Yeah.
But okay. Where are we at now?
On a tangent, that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
We were talking about talents, but
yeah.
I could talk about some PvP talents if you'd like.
Yeah. If we're done on the left side, then or actually, do we want to talk about the right side too before we get to go into PvP talents? Or
the right side's pretty important.
Yeah, is it?
It is.
Does it really have anything? Okay, let's talk on the right side then. Let's talk actual spec specific. We're just talking about that the Holy Pally spec stuff. What's going on there?
So kind of what you really want to pay attention to in the right side of the tree, it's going to be towards the bottom of the tree. So kind of after you spend the first 20 points, you're really going to be focused on the choice node between Avenging Crusader, the melee wings, and then the Avenging Wrath Might, which is the crit chance in your wings. That's going to kind of basically, that one talent node is going to dictate how you literally play your class, right? So that's an important one. And then a couple other ones of importance, I would say, are like Divine Toll's pretty clutch in PvP, and you also have like the Awakening talent and Blessing of Summer. So the Awakening talents gives you a chance to proc your wings when you spend your Holy Power on Word of Glory and Light of Dawn. And then the Blessing of Summer one It's just a very unique utility talent that they introduced in Shadowlands, and they kind of redesigned a bit um, for Dragonflight, and it's pretty cool. I like it.
Cool. Sorry. I'm waiting for Jake to say something because usually you have something to chime in on these.
Yeah, I know. I was just to be honest with you, I was thinking more about like the in general, the obviously the what we've got here with Blessing of Summer, and obviously we've got is it have you got Divine Toll as well? You do. So it might like, do you think those were like the best two options for Shadowlands, like Covenants, like to come back in? Like obviously that's, you know, we've talked about borrowed power for Yonks, and technically what seems to be happening each expansion is that these borrowed powers don't really go away. They kind of become part of the kit, like Stormkeeper, for example, from Legion. So like, do you think like would you prefer like, you know, maybe like Ashen Hollow?
So whoever picked the 2 out of the 4 did a really good job. I think they picked 2 really unique abilities that if you brought it carried over into more expansions, you wouldn't have a tough design problem going forward. And they're fun.
Yeah.
For, like, most of all, they're fun to use, and they're cool. So pretty good.
Well, good. That's good, because I was like, I think certain classes are definitely, or certain specs and classes have really lucked out, I think, on what they've been able to take. You know, I mean, the one that I think of in particular is Warriors with. I think they can get their Venthyr one, and
well, they have Spirit Bastion. That's the major one.
The Spirit Bastion, yeah. Which I think is nuts. Is an incredible ability. Obviously, mind games as well for priests and stuff like that. They've got the best of the ones that they needed. I feel like it's a shame that like some classes have gotten 2. Like I would have loved to have 2. You know, give me all the shaman stuff as well. I'll take that. Like Vesper Totem, I suppose. At least for elemental.
Vesper.
Oh no!
Please no.
Oh my god!
I have nightmares.
What do you mean? It was a nice friendly Vesper Totem that turned up next to you and killed you in one go. Anyway, yeah, I was just interested in that, because obviously if there was an option, would you pick something else? But obviously the answer is no, because that's perfect. Great. Well, we've talked about the right-hand side. Should we talk about the PvP talents?
I think we should.
So this is gonna be real easy for Holy Paladin. Okay, there's like 4 talents you play this expansion. Okay,
And that's it.
Okay. So for melee wings, you're playing Aura of Reckoning, which they did end up nerfing, but it was pretty deserved because it was pretty broken. It's when you build those stacks from your team getting crit, and then you get a judgment proc, and you throw this big judgment out. It does a ton of healing with your melee wings. You know, it's kind of fun. And then you have Blessed Hands, which gives you your 2 blessing and protections and freedom charges, which are amazing for PvP. And then kind of the third slot is a flex PvP talent. So what most players run is Vengeance Aura, which is kind of like extra crit whenever someone on your team gets crowd controlled. Or let's say you fight a Shadow Priest, an Ellie Shaman, you know, Boomkin, those sort of classes, you can play Cleanse the Weak, which is kind of an AoE dispel, and you make those specs hate you.
Yes,
pretty much.
Definitely, yeah. I feel that.
And then real quickly for the caster build, if you're not playing Melee of the Wings for whatever reason, you know, maybe you just like playing the caster spec, more fun for you. You're going to be playing like Light's Grace, which boosts your flashlight healing, your casted healing. You're going to play that precognition a lot of the time. So a lot of the casters have that honor talent where if you juke an interrupt, you become immune for 5 seconds to a lot of crowd control, and you get a haste buff. And yeah, that's it.
Nice.
Those are the ones. Yeah, that makes sense. So there's quite a cookie cutter sort of setup, apart from the flex talent at the end. Okay. Very interesting.
That's kind of boring. I mean, there's no.
I don't know if it's boring. I think there's so much going on in your talent trees that if you got even more complex, like sometimes I'll be in the starting gate to a solo shuffle round. You have 30 seconds, and I'll be thinking about a choice, like, do I play AoE Dispel here? Do I play Vengeance Aura? Oh wait, do I play Blind here? Do I play Repentance? It's always Blind, by the way, but just to give you an example. But you know, I think if there's too many choices, it could get kind of weird, and you might have to adjust the
True.
amount of starting room time. And some classes will be easier, or not easier, but some classes and specs will like take more time to pick their talents than others. So
Fair. How many pre-builds do you have? Like, do you have like one build and you just like bounce back and forth, or do you have like a few set builds where you're like, okay, oh, it's RMP, click, this is my loadout, done.
So I have 4, I believe. So it's
Okay.
one melee wings, one caster build for solo shuffle, and then one melee wings, one caster build for regular 2s and 3s. And the difference in talents are very minor, but I just like to have it set because I don't want to like there's with the talent trees when you go to like right click and move talents around, sometimes it could be kind of wonky. They're still like working on it. I think recently they put in where it shows like a little blue outline on talents that you had selected if it gets unselected or something like that. So it's getting better and better. But yeah, four loadouts right now.
Okay. I mean, form scene, that seems pretty good. But yeah, I can
Reasonable.
see that seems reasonable. I was kind of curious. I was thinking about like what you're saying, choices and whatnot. I'm wondering how that translated to different builds. So, just one quick precog. You said for the caster build, obviously you're doing you're probably doing more holy lights. You're doing more longer casts from far away.
Yep.
But don't you want that as well? Or are your flash of lights going off so fast that you're not worried about getting kicked on the on like the melee? Because the melee one, you're doing more flash of lights to get your holy power to then just get your wogs and your holy shocks off, right?
So for melee wings, if you're playing the spec to its like ultimate potential, the only time you're gonna flashlight is probably when you divine favor flashlight. So that's about once every 45 seconds.
Okay.
Now, if you're in a situation where you're flashlighting a lot, you either got really unlucky, or yeah, that's pretty much it. Like you didn't get any procs, maybe you got CC'd a lot, your team didn't help you. But like if you're playing melee wings to its like, the best you possibly could, you're probably flashlighting like 2 to 3 times a minute at most.
Okay. And you could probably take a look. You look down, you see that their CC, their kicks are still on cooldown, or you're over there and the rest of the scrum's over there, right? Or because I'm assuming if you're flash of lighting, you're not going to do it while you're in the melee range of anybody.
You might have to sometimes, and
Really?
that's okay, But you'd rather Crusader Strike to build that one holy power, because flashlight itself, if you don't have all the boosted like the talent boosters for it, it's not gonna do much, especially if you're melee wings. I would say you mostly play precog compared to melee wings with your caster build, is because you go from casting 2 to 3 flashlights a minute to like 10, like 9 or 10, like very quickly.
Really?
Like it adds up. Yeah, like almost, I'd say about double. Yeah.
See, I assume that on the caster build you'd be doing more holy lights because flash of light costs a lot of mana, right?
So here's kind of the design right now.
Okay.
There's a talent called Inflorescence of the Sunwell, where if you spec into it, your flashlight mana cost is reduced by, I believe it's 60%.
Holy, really?
So if you're the caster build, there's almost zero reason to cast Holy Light unless you're strictly going for Holy Power. It's needs some work.
But why would you cast a Holy Light for a Holy Power when you can cast a Flash of Light for an eighth of the time frame and still get a Holy Power? So okay, yeah.
So yeah, it's the design. The casted design needs some work, and also it's the same in raids and Mythic Plus as well, where people basically ignore infusion procs and casted heals. Needs a bit of
Which goes back to what you're saying, where you need a way to actually spend infusion properly rather than the way it currently. Yep. Okay, I got you now. Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay.
So essentially, the bonus for Holy Light is going to be you generate, I believe it's 1 extra Holy Power every 3 casts the Holy Light.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well, that's useless.
I guess this is why we've got Borngood here, because otherwise we wouldn't know this, and now we do.
It's okay. We're good.
I'm definitely enlightened.
That was funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a Resto Shaman. You're trying to cast like a long healing wave or something. Like you just don't do it in PvP. Like you can't get it off. Like it's the casted healer problem. Like if you're playing a casted healer in PvP right now, you know, like a Mistweaver, caster Holy Paladin, you know, Resto Shaman before they buffed their instant heals, like you were bad. You know, like you couldn't heal anything.
Well,
Yeah, for real.
If
you weren't CC'd, things would die before you get the cast off. Right?
It's not only that, but like you can't move. Like you're kind of just sitting there, and it's when you're not a moving target as a healer, like it's way easier to crowd control you, interrupt you, you know, even swap to you. Like, yeah, that's kind of one thing is the positioning. You have to stand still to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we're back to that whole mobility thing that Big Moran likes to talk about. So, okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. Sorry. You were mentioning with the big revamp. Is there anything that we just talked about for all the talents that people should know about? Because 10.0.7 is coming pretty fast.
Yep.
So, is there something like you said, it's not a major revamp for the holy side, but is there something that people should be aware of so that, you know, in let's say a few weeks or a month, hey, by the way, this podcast isn't completely obsolete?
So there's one change in particular I'm like geeking out over, and I'll tell you, I couldn't believe when Divine Steed came to the game that it was on the global cooldown. I was like astonished because that's just one button where you press it, it goes on global cooldown, and you just feel bad pressing it, to be honest with you. And it's like your core mobility of your class. It's coming off the global cooldown next patch. That's going to be pretty crazy and fun, where you can Divine Steed and Freedom at the same time, for example. That's just one thing where I'm like super excited to play with. And from what I understand, the rumor I heard is that the original designer of the ability wanted it off the global cooldown, but he got outvoted by everyone.
Okay. I like it.
But here we are.
Some inside goss right there. You've heard it here first. Or not, maybe. Who knows?
Probably not, but
so you could horsey and blindy light at the same time and like stun everybody as you get yourself out of the scrum.
Every Paladin player is gonna be like, oh my god, how do we go this long with it on the global? Like it's just one of those things where I'm so excited.
It's gonna feel like a complete class change. That's awesome.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. And that's just flat. Like that's not a different talent. That's not, you have to take another talent to implement that change or anything. It's just going to be there.
I mean, even in addition to that, they're buffing some of those mobility talents, like in the left side of the tree.
Okay.
Like the Seasoned Warhorse talent, where you get 1 extra second on your Divine Steed, it's going to 2 seconds now. Like it's just getting pretty fun. We'll see what happens.
All right. We'll be able to see a Holy Paladin cross half the map, and you know, instead of just pillar to pillar, you'll be clear across on the other side.
They had that in with the Covenant system in Shadowlands, and what were they called? Oh man, you could like you go down the talent rows and like you put in, it's not essences. Soulbinds.
Yeah.
That might be it. There was like a
conduits.
Yes, conduit. Thank you. There was a conduit that doubled the duration of your Divine Steed from like 3 to 6 seconds. And then they put in a talent, this expansion in Dragonflight, and it increases by 1 second. You're like, huh? You know, like what happened? You know,
So you can't have all the power directly, right?
Yeah, clearly it was too strong. That's what I'm going to say. That sounds like yeah. That's a lot of. I'm thinking Ret Paladins here, but yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, that's kind of one thing.
Wow. I'm just imagining now like a Paladin on a BG grabbing the map and double horsey with a 6 second long Divine Steed crossing the whole map with the flag. Yeah, catch me if you can.
You know what's funny? Nope. I would still have that talent in Shadowlands or that conduit, and I still wouldn't be able to Hajj Resto Druids. Too slippery.
Well, I don't think they're slippery anymore, are they?
Not really, no.
Yeah. Much to it.
Now I miss the Bigs here. He would be like trying to stand up for Resto Druids or something. I know it.
Be.
He would.
He would be. and then that would be amusing because obviously we're just totally pulling his leg, and he'd be like, "No, actually, I think we'll find." And I was like, "Okay, I believe you."
It totally sounds like him. I guess one thing I know Big likes to talk about this, or I like to make him talk about this stuff. First, the tier sets. What's the tier? So we got the tier set. You got the 2 set where Holy Shock increases the critical strike chance of your spells by 4% for 10 seconds. Sounds okay. And the 4 set, this one sounds juicy. Your Holy Light, Flashlight, Light of Dawn, and Bestow Faith healing is increased by 6%, and their crit effects increase the damage or healing of your next Holy Shock by 20%. And that sounds pretty juicy. So I'm guessing you want to go for a 4-piece, or is that actually like kind of a red herring where it sounds juicy, but it doesn't actually work that way in PvP, that well in PvP?
So it's not a 30% damage increase on your Rising Sun kick or something, but it's pretty darn good. Like if you, there isn't really a reason to play without 2 and 4-piece on your character, especially in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
I would say from what I understood going into this expansion, the first season, the tier sets were meant to be kind of not rotation altering, like something like crazy that we've seen in the past, right? It was kind of meant to be like, some extra crit chance or some extra healing, something kind of passive in the background.
Yes.
And I think they nailed that pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But the balancing could have been a bit better, especially for PvP, because you had some tier sets that gave certain specs like plus 30% damage when they got it, and then some others would be like plus 0 damage. It was kind of bad. So I feel like they hit the nail on the head for what they were trying to do, but for PvP it didn't really work out that well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
I sadly
fair.
don't think the Asa Rogue developer got the memo on the 4-set situation.
Yeah, for example, right? Like,
Yeah.
What are you talking about? That's a completely passive buff. It doesn't really change the rotation, right? It doesn't.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, obviously, totally. Like, it's just everyone else is just that bad. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, Holy Paladins, you pretty much always run the tier set. It's pretty good.
I understand. Okay. And I guess the versatility loss versus and the stat weighting, is it that big of a deal for Holy Paladin? Or because I remember that always being a conversation, especially some tier sets didn't have as they got buffed now, but is it better, or is it still kind of like that little, oh crap, I don't know, maybe I should have.
Here's kind of the important thing to think about when it comes to the stat weights, when it comes to versatility especially. Some pieces on your tier are going to be like crit mastery, and as a Holy Paladin, kind of your stat priority is you want to get as much versatility as you can to about 30%, and then you go for a lot of crit and a lot of haste. I like about half of each as a secondary, but you can kind of mix and match depending on like what you're feeling, your play style, how you're feeling that day, you never know. You just don't want mastery. And the way you do it is you pick all the tier set pieces. So it's going to be all of them except the shoulders for Paladin, because the shoulders are the one piece with like high mastery roll on it. And you end up with about 26% versatility when you're like full bis gear. You can optimize it further, but you need like the crafted lariat. Let me get this.
The elemental lariat.
Hold on. Lariat neck, yeah. And then also, you can do like versatility, enchants and gems, or kind of a mix of like haste and crit, that sort of thing. But the idea is you don't want to go above 30% versatility a lot, because there's a 10% diminishing return if you go above 30% on like your extra stat is kind of the thing.
Okay.
That's pretty much, yeah.
So I guess in that way, you're kind of lucky that there's that higher stat weight of crit in that, because I know there's some specs where crit is like their worst, the thing they're trying to avoid, and you go to their tier set, it's all like crit plus whatever, and it's like
yeah.
So you're losing versatility, and not getting the most prime stats. So okay.
Yeah, Holy Paladin's one of the unique specs for PvP, I would say, where you really like both verse, haste, and crit. Like they're all great for you. So we didn't really get messed on that hard by like the tier set stuff.
Nice. All right. And I guess not right now because we're still kind of early in, season 1 and that, but let's talk season 4. Obviously we're going to get more stats. There's going to be, there's going to be the stat bloat that you always get across the seasons. Is there going to be any soft caps or any hard caps you're going to be starting to look at, assuming that it's still going to be crit haste?
So there's I would say there's going to be a hard cap on crit if you're not playing melee wings, because there's a talent that gives you, it's 20% extra crit when you have your wings up. So let's say your holy shock, you get it up to a 100% crit chance or whatever, in season whatever the last season of the expansion is. That would kind of be a hard cap, right? Going above 100 doesn't do anything for you. So that's when you'd be considering okay, let's go for some more haste or whatever. That's kind of the only hard cap.
That's good.
Soft cap wise, it's going to be it's just the 30% soft cap. So for verse, haste, and crit, depending on how the expansion plays out, I would first go for 30% of verse, haste, and crit, and then I would start adding on to probably versatility or something. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Where how it kind of scales.
Cool. Thanks. I like picking your brain because I get that's how you got all those little minutia of information, those little ideas to pick into as well.
Yeah.
What else were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say a lot of the time, what happens in the later seasons of an expansion, the gear makes the choice for you, so it's gonna put you above that 30% soft cap on versatility, for example. But we'll kind of have to see, how it plays out. It's all hypothetical, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the thing though. If the gear is pushing you above 30%, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. That's the amount of gear, right? It's not that it's worse that you're over 30. It just means that the amount of stats doesn't go linear, right? You're not linearly. That's where you start getting that taper off. So I mean, it's not a bad thing. And
it's very minor, but you're trying to optimize to beat your opponents.
Of course. If everybody else is wearing the same thing, then how can you do that one thing a little bit better to, yeah.
Exactly.
I get it. I guess that's the wonderful thing about playing down in the 900 bracket. I don't have to worry about that. So it's
or, I mean, you can worry about it if you want, or you could just have fun.
Exactly. I prefer to have fun. Speaking of having fun, do I have to worry about racials? Do I have to play it? Do I have to play no?
Yes.
Okay. So there's only one racial in the game that matters at this point, and it's going to be the one that takes off Deathmark. So that's going to be Dark Iron Dwarf or Dwarf. Either one's fine. But I would say besides that, I really love Zandalari Troll. It's one of the coolest additions to Paladins that you could play for me. So I would say yes and no. If you're getting to the point where you're pushing high glad or something, you're really trying to be super competitive, then yeah, having that dwarf racial to counteract one of the rogue's major cooldowns, or maybe a feral or something, right? That could be a difference maker whether you win or lose.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you really enjoy one of the racials in the game, or the races, right? Just do it. I'd say 9 times out of 10, unless it's specifically the situation I mentioned where you're getting rid of a death mark or feral bleeds or something, probably fine.
All right.
Mind games.
Exactly, yeah. Mind games. See how powerful that ability is? I feel like there needs to be another tuning pass for racials at some point here.
Leave my dwarf alone. I've been playing dwarf for 5 expansions because I love it so much, and it's finally they're great again. In BFA when you had Obsidian Claw and everyone's like, "Oh, how do we get rid of Obsidian Claws?" You go dwarf. That's what you do. You go dwarf. Go dwarf or go home. So
that trinket was insane, man.
Yeah, it was. God. It was, and it was Asa Rogues as well. Again, whenever Asa Rogues are big, the dwarf comes out to play. And I was I felt like I was the only person playing dwarf in BFA. Everyone was hating me because I'm playing female dwarf, and they're like, "Why would you choose something so ugly?" I was like, "You literally misunderstand dwarf. First, mostly female dwarf because they are insane." and it was awesome. And but I felt like so good because I felt like playing shaman as well. If you don't play dwarf, you would just die, and you needed something to kind of like help you live into these like especially Ass Rogue 2s. It was awful. So I'm glad that it's back at the minute. So don't destroy my dwarf, please, Blizzard. Thank you.
I'm not calling for a nerf to dwarf. I'm just saying there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there's a better way to do it. I'm not entirely sure what that would be. One thing I was thinking sometime was that where you have your honor talents, maybe you had like a few choices of like racials, maybe, for example, but there's hundreds of different ways you could do it. That would probably be better than what it is right now.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about D&D earlier, and I hate to bring it back up again, but I also don't hate to bring it back up again. In that you when you picked a race, you were hard stuck. Like you couldn't change anything. But then they brought out something called Tasha's Cauldron, and that allows you to choose whatever stats that you wanted. And I think you could choose whatever sort of certain racial abilities if you wanted to. And what they need to do when you create a character, what we need to do is that when you make a character, you can pick and choose the racials you want to use, and there'd be like a major racial versus a sort of like a minor one or something along those lines. Like, like a major one being, stone skin, not stone skin, like dark iron blood, or like the orc racial and stuff like that. You can pick and choose the ones that you want to use when you make your character, and you kind of go from there. So you can like the idea that whatever in the kind of RP of everything, whatever character you've chosen actually isn't the same as the other dwarfs that you've got there. They've got their own personality. This one's a bit more sort of like hardy, gets a bit of an angry rage going on. You've got a bit of blood fury, that sort of thing. So you can kind of pick and choose, and I think that's what the game should really have at this point.
Yeah, I feel like most of the arguments and proponents for keeping it the way it is that it's an MMO, right?
Mm-hmm.
You build your character from level 1, it sticks with you forever. But I feel like Blizzard over the years have been more willing to make changes in the other direction if it's going to be more fun. First of all, it has to be fun for a larger group of people, right? Like, I feel like they've been more open in going forward, so we'll have to see kind of what happens, because I feel like if they made a change where for PvP play, or even raid environment, or like a Mythic Plus environment where you had like a little loadout where you could maybe choose maybe the lore could be like you went to the orc home in Orgrimmar, and you studied under them and trained, and you kind of learned like their battle prowess or whatever, right? Like there has to be a better way. Like I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. There genuinely has to be, and I think the flexibility of just being able to either, if you want to retain that MMO sense, either you choose a loadout from your character creation screen as a part of like, sort of in the same way that you would in Dungeons & Dragons or those other classes, like you'd pick a feat or something like that. And that's that's what it would be. Like either racials become feats, for example. That's a good way of doing it. As we say, like different loadouts, you choose a different feat and you kind of stick with that one. Or it becomes more flexible and you kind of pick and choose. Or alternatively, I love that idea that you had, Borngood. Like, what if you actually had to go to places to pick up certain feats, and you kind of use those as those are your like in sort of inverted commas your racials in a way, and you actually have to go out and get them, and you collect a certain number, and you can kind of pick and choose, and they're kind of like glyphs from Wrath a little bit.
Hey, now we're talking. Those are fun.
Brainstorming. So Blizzard, if you're listening, please think about it.
This has been highly debated and talked about, I'm sure, by pretty much everyone that plays this game. They're no stranger to this topic, I'm sure.
I'm sure. And they come to technically PvP to get the highest intellectual discussions. So
I'm just sitting back listening to you guys enjoying this conversation.
But as Borngood said, like it's been talked to. I was about to say to death, but it hasn't really been, because we could talk about it forever. But it would be nice to see something, because they are for example, the new talent system is because of them realizing how much people loved Classic, and loved the original style. But they didn't just take the original style and go copy pasta. Here's something really new, really great, and just quite different, and it's worked very well. So I'm excited to see what intuitive and new stuff they bring in. But if they could do that to racial as well, that'd be awesome.
I think, and I posted the question into chat asking if there should be more agency to race choice. But I feel like you make your class, you make your character, you pick a race, you pick a class or whatever. You start in the starter zone. You do a few set of quests right there if you want to, and then generally, especially nowadays, if you make a brand new character, you pretty much jump right out of that and you're into chromie time, leveling up if you want to go that way, or you just say screw it and you buy the boost and just get yourself into the most recent expansion to just go. So, and then really, I think there's no real quest. There's not like there's no one of that. I remember there used to be like race only questing.
Yeah.
And I don't see that anymore. And I guess in a way it's okay, but I feel like that's the one thing that's kind of missing. Like I don't feel like when I grab my Draenei Paladin that I'm a Draenei and that I'm doing it for Drain, or I'm doing it, I'm just out here in Dragon Isles doing Dragon Isle stuff. You want
to know where I have felt that actually?
Where?
When I unlocked my Zandalari troll, I actually felt that. But it's very specific to the new allied races. They did a good job with this.
Yeah, they did. They actually did, and that's actually very true.
I guess I have to play allied a bit more.
Yeah, you will have to. I think you feel that in Classic a little bit, and that's why there's people that go back to Classic. Like I have friends that have played, certain servers of different expansions for many years, and they keep going back. For example, there is a massive resurgence of people wanting to play Season of Mastery. Like genuinely, I have known so many people that are going back and playing just leveling, because that experience in itself is a wonderful experience, because that is your classic MMO, and obviously it's steeped in nostalgia, but that is a wonderful part of it. You don't get that in retail because people don't. That experience is gone. There is no enjoyable. Like it's not enjoyable anymore to level in retail. And you just kind of either dungeon spam or you get boosted. So
yeah, that one, 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like it's just not as enjoyable anymore. Whereas you kind of like the point about Classic was that experience of the leveling. You were steeped in what each zone kind of had, and you'd go and explore that. And I think the modern MMO is kind of more focused on, okay, you do the storylines of these expansions and then you go slam end game content, which is where most people want to do it because they want to be competitive or they want to do that. And that's a shame, but that's just kind of how it has moved, because our attention spans are much shorter nowadays. So I think just want to get in.
I think everybody wants to get to end game because that's where all their friends are, and that's where they're told they have to be to play with their friends. And then you're always chasing. It's that chase, right? To go, you have to do this and that, and hit these hoops to get to where your friends are, because your friends are already there. 2 questions. One, so are there any races that can't be paladins? And if so, which one would you like Blizzard to add in?
Oh man, wow. Okay. So what I want to say about that is that I think it's 3 classes now, or is it more that can play every single race?
Yeah,
it's Rogue, Mage, Priest. I think eventually they're gonna make that for all the. Oh, is it Warrior too?
Yeah, I think so.
So they're gonna do that eventually for all the classes. The one for Paladin that I would be like, oh my god, I'm race swapping right now. All 5 of my Paladins, Undead. That would be amazing. Just cool. You know what I mean? That would be the one.
Okay. Not the first person I heard say that. I think
that's definitely coming though.
Yeah,
it's coming for sure. With the whole new quest lines with Celia Menethil and everything, and you get these light-based paladins in the same way that Blood Elves got those super cool holy light eyes that you can get. you'll get the same with the undead, and I think it's 100%. Like that would be really really sick.
Yeah,
I agree. And now I can't remember what my second one was. So
that's all good.
whatever.
That's it must not have been important.
Really, yeah, no, it's a whimsical idea, but that's okay.
But I tell you what is important. Let's talk about comps. Like, what would you play as a Holy Paladin? We can talk. Obviously in solo shuffle you have no choice, but in 2s and 3s, like, what are you queuing up with?
Well, what's the goal? Are you trying to have fun, win, all of the above?
Let's start with winning.
Okay, so
and
winning,
then fun.
Winning equals fun, right?
right?
Well, I mean,
right.
yeah.
So
exactly.
okay, so for 2s, you're pretty much gonna want to queue up with like a strong melee class, like an Asa Rogue or an Arms Warrior, and a Holy Death Knight, maybe even a Demon Hunter. Like those type of classes mesh really well with the Holy Paladin in 2s. And then for 3s, I think a lot of the time right now, the best comps are gonna be either melee caster or double caster. But melee caster specifically, you'll have like the Asa Rogue Shadow Priest. That's probably the best comp in the game. Or you have like your Arms Warrior, Destro Lock or something like that. I've played recently. Like those type of comps. Like the melee caster Holy Paladin, I think has a lot of good synergy because you have the freedoms for the melee, and then you also have like other good tools to help your caster out, get his damage out, that sort of thing. And you have a lot of cooldowns to save them because they're kind of squishy a lot of the time, those casters. So yeah. Melee caster healer, specifically with like an Asa Rogue, Arms Warrior, Destro Lock, Shadow Priest, that sort of stuff.
Okay,
Interesting.
that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Thoughts on H Pala with like Ellie Mage? Not asking for any personal reasons, just curious.
So here's the problem with Mage Ellie right now,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with the healer. You don't have a Mortal Strike. That's the problem.
But the Mortal Strike is the proc. You don't need Mortal Strike if they just die.
Yeah. Okay. So I've actually played that comp multiple times, and each time no one died. We sat there for not 10 minutes. That's an exaggeration. We sat there like for 5 minutes, and we attacked them. We did a ton of damage, but they could kind of just heal through it easy. And we're like, what's going on? Oh, we don't have a Mortal Strike. And something that people are realizing more and more now, especially in Dragonflight, is that Mortal Strikes are kind of king.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wholeheartedly agree. I don't know whether you were playing with an Arcane Mage or Frost Mage, but I've been playing a lot of Frost Mage Ellie on EU, and it's, to be honest with you, 9% of the time it's when we've been playing, it's the big glacial spikes for 250k.
Yeah.
Kind of seal the deal. And that's the only way. But the only way it works is by having insanely huge damage, because if you're not absolutely blowing people up, you need to kind of wear them down with the most insane Mortal Strike.
Yep.
So I get that. Anyway, my personal question aside, so what would you say is your win condition? Being a H Pala, like what do you think you can do personally that's kind of suited to your class? And
so kind of across like a variety of comps you'll be playing in 3s, like the main things you're looking for are to not overlap your cooldowns, like defensive cooldowns, because that's kind of one of the main reasons to bring a Holy Pounding, because like you have those Blessing of Protections that can counter like those Death Marks, Spirit Bastions, freedoms to get your melee onto a target. Like you want to be using your cooldowns like often and early, and then also you want to be, especially versus I would say Disc Priest teams, which are kind of like just running the ladder right now. You're actually gonna look to kind of push aggressive onto them and try and crowd control them, because let's say you're playing Rogue, Shadow Priest, Holy Paladin. That's a comp with a lot of crowd control, so your team can CC the healer pretty easily. But let's say you're playing like, I don't know, like Warrior, Ellie, Shaman, Holy Paladin. Like you don't have a lot of crowd control over that healer, so it's gonna be based on your comp that you're gonna kind of decide, okay, do I need to go crowd control the healer, or do I need to go like crowd control DPS, that sort of thing. So those are a couple of things you want to kind of think about, is like in this matchup, do I need to crowd control the healer or the DPS? And that sort of thing. It's pretty important.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good
that
to
makes
know.
sense. And then the most vital question of all, how do I kill you? How do I beat a Holy Pala?
So it's actually pretty similar to Fist Leaving Monks, kind of the same way, except you, as a paladin, you don't have port. So they're gonna kind of like if they're playing Melee Wings, they're gonna kind of get into the fray, right? You can AOE CC them, AOE Fear. You can crowd control them, but besides crowd controlling them, killing them in stuns. That's gonna be your main way because what's gonna happen is that if the Holy Paladin that's against you doesn't realize that like his Melee Wings are running out, maybe he doesn't have like his bubble available, that sort of thing. Like you can punish them pretty hard for like staying in the fight too long. And that's kind of when I like to kind of mention the dance of Melee Wings is because if you stay in the dance too long, you're gonna die. Like because the team's gonna swap to you and they're gonna kill you. And that's the main way to beat Holy Paladin is that you kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see that a lot, especially if you play Holy Paladin. You know what I'm talking about. They're gonna attack you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So if they're going to pick up Holy Paladin tomorrow, they listen to this, they're like, okay, go watch Borngood, and then they run into the arena, they queue up, and the first thing they do is run in. Should they be when they're running in, they're going to do melee wings and they're going to start playing in the fray. Should they always be in their back of the mind, always thinking about how am I going to get out of this? Like
You gotta have. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the question. Like, should they always have that escape plan ready? Like be running with like their ass puckered because they're about to die any second if they're not careful and get swapped to?
So, interestingly enough, just something random. I come from a finance background a bit, and there's something called an exit strategy with your investments. It's the same thing with Melee Wings. If you don't have an exit strategy, you're gonna lose. That's what's gonna happen because when your Melee Wings fall off, like if you're a healer next to their whole team, like that's just like let's say I'm a Holy Paladin and I see the enemy healer come into my whole team. I'm like, oh man, they're serving themselves up on a platter for us. We can CC them, we can attack them, whatever. It's kind of gonna depend on if you have your Melee Wings up, is it gonna fall off soon? What cooldowns do you have? Do you have your bubble still? Do you have a Freedom Divine Steed to get out of there quickly? Which, by the way, next patch, you're going to be way more tanky as a Holy Paladin. You're gaining a lot of stamina and armor through your talents. Divine Steed's coming off the global cooldown, so you can Freedom Divine Steed out instantly. It's going to be really noticeable. So, let's see. It's looking nice.
Okay. That's a great one. And I guess for a Holy Paladin, then, would that be the Blessing of Freedom 55 exit strategy that you're trying to do? Never mind. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. On that, the question that we always like to ask everybody as we finish up this subject of analysis is the one thing you would change. So, scenario, you have all the money and all the influence with Blizzard. You can make one change to the game. Doesn't matter what. It will happen. Born, what's one thing you would change?
Like change that's currently in the game, or can it be something new?
Anything
Anything
you want. You can add something, you can take away something, it can be something new, it can be bringing back something old.
I mean I already know my answer.
Give it to us.
Ready.
So what I would like to see, and I actually think they're doing it, I want to see a solo queue type battleground experience, but not the old stuff that we've had. Like I want to see something like kind of like I want them to take Blizzard to take a risk with like a new type of battleground game mode that could be like structured specifically for a solo queue type environment. Like that's something because like just as much as I've played Arena over my WoW career, I've played a metric ton of battlegrounds, and that's what I grew up playing, and I love them. But there's just something I don't queue anymore, and that's something I would love for that to come back. Like I would geek out over that.
I like it. a fresh new solo queue battleground or rated battleground situation.
Yep.
That would be fun. That would be hectic. I can see that being fun though. I like it. Okay.
Massive incentives as well, obviously, to get people to queue, and I think that'd be dope.
Well,
Yeah.
if it's fun enough, everyone will show up. That's what I'm saying. They got to take some risks.
For sure.
Well, I think we've noticed that they're willing to take risks though. Like their risk level is definitely higher, which is awesome, and it's paying off. I would say in dividends.
Oh yeah.
So, Jake, do you have anything you want Blizzard to change?
Yes, if I had all the money and all the influence in the world for Blizzard, I know exactly what I want to do. And we talked about it tonight. And that is, we're going to give Elemental Shaman a MS effect. So I can play Ellie Mage and I can finally win. You know what? I'd say that'd be interesting. You know what would be interesting? If you tied the MS effect in... Actually, no, that would suck. No, I was about to say in the Dispel, but that would suck because only the healer would get it. Or unless, here we go. So when you dispel Flame Shock, control of lava now, it puts an MS effect on for 5 seconds on them. On the person that gets dispelled. Done. There we go.
Interesting.
There we go.
I say that's better. I thought you were going to say Vesper Totem, but
No, I was going to say Vesper Totem. As much as I joke, I hated Vesper Totem. So yeah, I'm glad that that's not come back. But
awesome.
No, I think MS effect, so I can finally yeah, I'm explosive, but also if you dispel, there we go, 5 second MS effect, done. 25%, doesn't need to be crazy.
Nice.
That's it. I'll take that.
Okay.
You wanna know something? I wonder. Sorry, real quick.
No, go ahead.
I wonder if there's a PvP specific mechanic they could add to the game where most melee bring the MS effect. I wonder if there's something unique they could give the casters to bring to the table.
Yeah,
That's what I've always wondered.
because that's very true. Because there's not many casters that have an MS effect. It's mostly like all melee, pretty much at this stage, apart from enhanced shaman, obviously. And like even DKs, unholy DKs, have a form of MS in the sense that they've got a healing absorb instead.
Right.
So it's interesting because I think Demo Locks now have it as well. I think obviously Destro has it a little bit, but it's not massive. There are a few out there. I mean, technically, Resto Shaman with Unleash Shield with Water Shield technically have an MS effect in a way.
Yeah.
But it would just be. I mean, like I think at this stage, personally, in my opinion, they've gone too overboard with the Mortal Strike. Like they need to it should have just remained the few classes that have it, so that that's what they provide, and then everyone else kind of has that more. Okay, we do flat damage, and I think actually in reality, if you had that, if we had less sort of like healing absorbs and Mortal Strike effects, then people probably would actually. You'd find maybe the game balance is a little bit easier. I don't know.
I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
So I'm losing track here, Jake. So you want to have Mortal Strike, or you want less people to have Mortal Strike?
Look, I want to have it now because I know everyone's got it, and realistically speaking. But however, if I did have all the money in the world, technically, I could get rid of all the MS effects. So we'll say both.
Okay. Oh man. All right. Just quickly. So mine, I want them to make it where Blinding Flash gives us such a brilliant flash that it almost burns out people's retinas and actually blinds the players, not just their characters. So just that initial, like,
What?
yeah. So like how Empyrean Domain is like that really bright where you almost have to wear sunglasses because it's almost too bright. I want them to like have Blinding Flash put off so much of a brilliance that it almost burns out your LCD screen, and you're actually like, and you can't play the game for a second because you as a player are actually blinded too.
Bro, I can't even dodge mechanics in game. I have to dodge mechanics IRL now. Like,
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Welcome to 4D. Like this is like genuine. Like it's in person. It's now affecting.
Yeah. I like it. See, Nethy has it in chat. He's like, just like CSGO flashbang. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Exactly like it.
That's
and
amazing.
I think also, I mean, we've already kind of had it with the Empyrean Domain. Like you already are blinded, so we should be used to that by now. I mean, I don't know what you're complaining about.
Maybe make it a talent. Call it Blinded by the Light. Right?
Blinded by light. Blind the player IRL and watch all the lawsuits come in.
You know what's interesting? They've never come out with a like a PvP like ability or mechanic where you can like block the enemy player's UI, right?
Ooh, like
No.
hack 'em. They've
I
been
don't think they
DDoSing
have.
from. I mean, that was DDoSing, right?
I don't mean like that. I mean like instead of a smoke bomb, like the rogue threw like a flash grenade or something, and it
Oh, I
like blinded
see.
the healer's UI for like 2 seconds or something. Like
Yeah. So you
I
actually
don't
have like
think
that,
there's ever been something
that glow off on the screen where you can't see the buttons or anything.
Yeah.
I wonder if it does like. No offense, I don't think it really matters when you start getting that super high level where everybody has keybinds, because everybody just knows where their fingers are supposed to go anyways, right? So
Well, you're missing a lot of information. That's what I was
True.
because what if it like turned off also like your add-ons?
yeah, oh that's true, yeah. Because if it had that
Like,
glow
you
out,
couldn't
yeah,
see interrupts or cooldowns
yeah.
for like maybe 2 or 3 seconds. You can do something like really cool and skillful.
Oh, that's that. Yeah, yeah. I like where this is going. Okay, good thing Blizzard doesn't actually listen to this podcast, so we're
What do you
fine.
mean?
Rogues don't need that. Do not give that to rogues, please. Do not give that to rogues.
The rogue designer's just sitting here, like doing the whole like Mr. Smithers, sort of like touching his fingers at the tips, just going like, "Perfect! I found the next thing for next expansion."
Yes.
Oh my god.
Disgusting.
Thankfully, just because Ian Hazacostas obviously plays assassination rogue, that's why they have avoided everything. Like, but
Yeah.
thankfully he doesn't listen into this. We're fine. But
You want the truth, the hard truth.
And nothing but the truth.
tell me what you got. What you really got.
Are we quoting Spice Girls? tonight?
I think the tinfoil that there's some person that plays an assassination rogue or a rogue or whatever. I think that's complete BS.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really do.
I agree.
Yeah,
just
I
wanna
mean they
point
play
that out
Hunter.
there.
They play Hunter.
Yeah, there you go, Hunter.
Yeah, they don't play rogue. They play hunters. This is why there's a problem. There we go. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. Oh, when was it? It was a few expansions ago, and there was like one of the classes. Well, again, like everybody's like, "Oh my god, this class is OP." You know, nerf. And somebody, I want to say that they like asked a dev, and they're like, "I know it. You play blah blah blah," and they're like, "Actually, no, I play." And I want to say it's like Ret Paladin or like Shadow Priest, when Shadow Priest was like bottom of the barrel kind of thing. Like they weren't even like the number one at all, and they're like everybody's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
I mean, I swear, like in BFA season 4, they were like, the devs play Destro Warlock. It's clear the bias is there, you know, or H Pala or something like that. It was nuts. Like it was just, you know, but it's just copium at the end of the day, isn't it? It's just that's what we do to kind of like try and explain why the game is in the state it's in, and it gives us a little bit of well, I say us. I'm including everyone here in this sort of pseudo sort of like I know what the devs play sort of situation. It's just a bit of fun, I guess, but some people do take it seriously, unfortunately.
Yeah, they do. Yep. Unfortunately, something we don't take seriously. We do. Is the news. So let's get into that.
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
All right. Thanks, Millhouse. Into the PvP news. So we have Group A and Group B of the MDI have completed. The 2 teams for each of those have been selected. They're moving into the grand finals. We got Sloth and Team Echo for Group A, and for Group B, as soon as that opens, because I didn't write it down. It is 2 teams that Perplexed and Donuts. Thank you. But congratulations to those 2 teams for running dungeons as fast as they can, which is actually a lot harder than you'd think, especially with some of the affixes that they got thrown at them. It was, hats off again to those players and those teams. And we have, like I said, 2 more MDIs coming up, which will figure out the other 4 teams going to the grand finals. Another one, something that we had actually missed. I want to give a quick shout out to Healing Stat. If anybody doesn't follow him on Twitter, I highly recommend you do, because he seems to get a lot more stuff than I've ever seen on. He repeats and retweets so many things. But Lappy over in France did a fight for the arena as a 3rd go at this, and so it was a two-time event. There was the first event, which looked like it was played online, and that was an elimination bracket, which then culminated in a IRL LAN that they played in France, 3v3. And quick shout out to Team Alancien for winning that. and kudos to them. I unfortunately I don't have the team name, the actual player's name right off the top of my head, so sorry, I can't give that to you. Just a little bit of thing. So hot fixes, small hot fix dropped today. Just an itty bitty one, I guess. Actually, Jake, I saw that there were some Ellie buffs in the hot fixes. Are you excited about those finally? Like, I know you were really calling out for those earlier.
Yeah, no, I mean, elementals have really been suffering in PvP. So I think they really, as we say, they need an MS effect beyond anything. I mean, it's just point in case now. That's what they need. But actually, there wasn't really that much of a buff. What was so interesting, what I was really impressed with, and I think they need to do this going forwards, is there was a lot of buffs to PvE side of Elemental Shaman. So 10% here, 6% there. And it was sort of, these are the buffs, and then on the kind of at the end of it was does not apply to PvP, and sometimes there was does not apply to PvP twice, it seems like, on most of them, to kind of reiterate the fact that it's not in PvP. And I love that, because I think that's how we need to be having these buffs for PvE going forward, so that PvP is not impacted. If all of these went through into PvP, Elemental would be cracked out beyond total belief. It would be insane. It would just be nuts. They definitely don't need these buffs. But they needed it in PvE, so that's great. But they just doesn't apply. The only thing that has snuck through is frost shock damage by 15%, which all it means is that War Banner and other bits and pieces that you're kind of dumping it into to kind of at least get rid of it very quickly is going to die a bit quicker, and also our slows will just hit a little bit harder. Not too crazy. Will it mean that there's an Ice Fury potential, like an Ice Fury build? I doubt it, but it's just interesting. But I just love the way that they've handled the buffs. Is all.
I also like the fact that a bunch of them were elemental only. Like,
Well, they're weak, man. They're weak.
They are. One thing. Sorry, go ahead.
In chat was mentioning that enhance is kind of looking good.
Yes, yes, of course. Can't forget the shaman buffs. I know that Tickle has talked about it a little bit. In fact, the kind of Storm Strike buff that we've had, which is obviously getting a 20% buff. And they're sort of like, I guess they're dealing with the kind of natural burst and kind of replacing the sort of consistent damage, which I think is great. I mean, it's definitely going to bring them up there, but it's nowhere near going to fix the spec, I don't think.
So I really wanted to bring that up because something we're going to start seeing more and more is Blizzard starting to shift the damage profile of specs a bit more consistent than bursty, which I think is a bit healthier to not only play with and play against, but also to design it too.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about Wrath PvP, it's like there were certain classes that were kind of bursty, but then kind of like, I mean, like take Elemental Shaman and Wrath. It feels like there was like they're consistently high damage, or there's classes that have just consistent high damage in general. And if they can kind of level it out and sort of make it, okay, let's get the focus back to sort of like, okay, we're CCing this person here. We've got triple CC on everyone. We've kind of, that sort of play style is a bit more fun because it feels like, oh, I've just made a sick play. I'm rewarded with a kill. Rather than sort of like, I've pressed W, they can't heal it. So I've won,
Mm-hmm. I, just as a note, chat is saying that apparently Ice Fury is one-shotting people as of tonight.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the change? Let me look at that again.
It's an 80% buff to Ice Fury, and I know that there's a specific talent for Elemental where it buffs it or buffs the frost shocks from it, but I don't think it can't be Ice Fury itself doing the one shot. Maybe it's the frost shocks also. I'm not sure. It's not a build that I've tested personally, but definitely an interesting one.
I don't know.
We'll have to,
Either way, I will note, so a couple other things. Your Gladiator's Distinction, so the double trinket bonus that we have, the stamina has been buffed by 40%. I find this interesting. So they're buffing our stamina again to try to give us a bigger health pool so we have a bit more survivability. I'm wondering if they shouldn't start looking at the initial dampening for Arena, that starting at 10% until 5 minutes instead of starting at 0 and then clocking up at 5 minutes. I wonder if that shouldn't be adjusted instead of just increasing everybody's health pool again.
So I can take this.
Yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
go for it, please.
So here's kind of I mean I don't know what their team's obviously thinking, but if I was wanted to see the 10% dampening or the way dampening works changed, I wouldn't do it mid-season. I would wait for the next season. Because I feel like that would fundamentally change the way Arena plays.
Yes.
I mean, like really change the way it plays, right? The thing with the stamina buff, it's a very cautious buff because I'm not gonna lie to you guys, we're actually pretty close to like it's actually a lot of the time when I die on my healer, I get triple stunned or whatever, right? Or I get crowd controlled and so one of my team dies. They're actually like really close to living, if that makes sense. So I feel like they're being a bit cautious with the amount of stamina they're putting in because like if you go overboard on that, you're gonna end up in some long games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I like that they're being cautious about it, and the fact they even made the change should kind of indicate that they're aware of it, and that's pretty much all I care about is that they're aware of it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think that's either that or they just solely read Sidu's tweets. Like that's the, that's the other option. But I think it's amazing that, and this is what I've been praising. I've been personally so impressed by them. The amount of reaction and changes that they've implemented in this season alone is incredible. Some of them don't hit, but I'd rather they actually be doing it and are aware and providing communication than not doing it at all. And we just go for months and months with nothing. I'd much rather what we have now. 100%.
Agree.
Oh yeah. No, the micro changes and all the tuning along the way has been a godsend compared to the seasons past and the lack of interaction that we've had. I definitely don't. As much as every memes about they feel like they're talking to a wall. That whole meme of the guy talking to the wall and it says talking to the PvP devs or whatever. Like memes aside, I honestly feel like although we're not getting direct reaction on anything we send up, this stuff tells us that we're being listened to and that they recognize what we're saying as a community. I will also say, I feel that a lot of the information and interaction that I'm seeing with PvP devs is definitely more in depth rather than this game sucks, I quit.
Yeah.
More of that.
Right. So a couple other things. Windwalkers got this is kind of a big buff to me. The Touch of Karma now redirects 105% of the absorbed damage. That seems pretty big. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Touch of Karma also is directly linear to, or is in direct correlation to the amount of stamina that a Windwalker has. So technically they got a double buff because with the stamina trinket, they now have more stamina, which then means Touch of Karma is going to do more.
It's that one was an interesting change. I saw Ven Fuki today tested it out. And I believe with Emblem Trinket, which is the temporary HP, and then Fort Brew, one full Touch of Karma did like 80% of someone's total HP, which is a massive difference. But to be fair, that's like in optimal scenarios. But
yeah,
I mean, Windwalker monks, their karma would last like literally 1 second a lot of the time. Like I feel like that's
just
a
gets
bit
dispelled
low.
off or gets purged, right? So
yeah, I feel like the buff was definitely warranted.
I like it.
Sure.
I like it. That just makes me giggle though, hearing you say that. He was tested it. He did all that. Ven. He's funny.
I think Sidu said it best, which was sort of like, it's definitely something, but when it'll make people realize that you can actually just dispel it. So hopefully it won't be like doing 80% of someone's damage, but it'll be a decent defensive cooldown for Windwalkers, like it should be, rather than sort of just kind of air.
I think right now people were completely ignoring the damage component of it. They were just attacking into it with no repercussions, and that is just a design flaw which they have now fixed for the most part. So
exactly, and that's great.
You will respect my Touch of Karma.
You will.
Maybe we'll see.
A couple others. So Outlaw got a small buff with their dispatch damage. I don't know how much of it's really going to change, but it's a finisher, so we'll see. 15%. You already talked about the Shaman. Fury Warriors got a slight buff, so rampage damage and the execute damage got increased just a little bit. I'm not sure if 10%, 15%. I guess that'll make a bit of a difference. It'll probably be felt.
They have a lot of modifiers.
Yes.
True enough. And I guess the last but not least, the one that everybody was going off on last night. Literally, my Twitter blew up as soon as this came out. Assassination rogues. So their hemotoxin, the PvP talent, healing reduction effect, so their Mortal Strike, went from 35% to 30%, thinking that might help ease the pain of Assassination Rogue in PvP. I mean, honestly, I think 35% was always too much. I'm glad that it is reduced. I think it should come a little bit lower personally, considering some of the other things that an Assassination Rogue can do. I don't know. Jake, I'm going to throw it to you first. Do you think this is going to make a difference?
Honestly, as I'm on EU and I haven't been able to queue yet, I have absolutely zero idea, practically speaking. I think 5% will be good. I think it's, when I think about twos, I think in twos, that's something, at least that's like that'll make them feel a little bit less oppressive. Whether or not that interaction actually does much, we'll find out. I think that's how I always feel about any nerfs or buffs, is that you kind of got to play just to kind of get a feel of whether or not it's done much. I remember, for example, there are some nerfs that Asa Rogues had, never felt them, but you feel the 6% buff to Hunters, that's for sure. Stuff like that. Like you kind of have to play out and feel it sort of really to see whether or not there's been some sort of change. And you can normally feel when things like, for example, when all abilities have been buffed, whereas when something like, Hemotoxin gets nerfed, we'll have to see how that interacts, especially with the stamina buff. I think maybe the stamina buff and the Hemotoxin nerf might actually do something a bit better, and maybe that'll help out, but we'll have to see.
All right. Born, what about you?
Yeah, hi.
Do you think you're going to be able to heal through the Assassination Rogue damage a bit more now that their Mortal Strike is reduced a bit?
Okay, so here's kind of what this change does, I believe. So there's actually situations where the rogue would they wouldn't even crowd control people. They would kind of just press their kidney shiv and the healer wouldn't be crowd controlled, and the healer would be pressing their optimal healing rotation, like as much healing as humanly possible, and you still couldn't move their HP. I feel like that's pretty unhealthy. So like it's gonna matter to living those kidney shiv goes, but the one interesting thing to me is that it's something the Moran brought up on Twitter, is that as you go across the rating spectrum, like, from like 2700 to 1800, the rogue spec asset itself drops from, I believe, 2 in representation to 5. And something that I'm kind of hinting at is that most players in this game that PvP play below that 1800 rating, and I would say that it gets, like, philosophically it gets interesting. Like, who do you balance the game for? Do you do it for the average player? Do you do it for the highest echelon, or do you try and do it for both? And I feel like we're in a situation where Blizzard probably felt like they needed to do something, but they're a bit hesitant at how a larger nerf would play out, if that makes sense. I feel like the caution is warranted in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think, to be honest with you, with any buffs or nerfs, they should be doing it at like 6% or 5% or even 3% each time. So these tunings are slight, so they can kind of see how it's affecting the meta in that way, and then they can decide whether they want to put another 6% on top. And that's how I feel like they should be doing buffs and nerfs, at least for PvP, because it's so volatile with how it can swing.
And
So-
that's another thing you bring up. Like, let's say they make this 5% nerf, and they'll have the hard data on what happens to the ladder, win rates, all that stuff. So
Mhm.
next time they go to do the change, they'll have a more, they'll have more compelling evidence to decide whether it's a 5 or 10% nerf, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like they're doing this change. It's very cautious. They're gonna have data going forward where maybe a different spec is kind of maybe don't hurt me for this, Warriors, but maybe Sharp Blade is a bit out there. Do you nerf it by 5 or 10%, for example? So I feel like getting some data here is pretty important, and we're all aware of how strong Asarogues are, right? But
Yeah.
it's gonna be, how do you do it without completely killing the spec is the idea.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that before where there was the it's a bit of a throwback. I believe it was 2017. There was a jungle cleave team that completely ran through and took a position to BlizzCon, and then jungle got nerfed to the absolute ground, and they were then having to play through. They still played through all the rest of the cups, but they did not win a single cup beyond that. And they went to BlizzCon and they fell out in the initial round 1 because their comp was completely gutted to the ground. And I think they learned the lesson there. I really hope. And I agree. I think we're seeing that here. So,
Although I'll say this, there's a very similar situation occurring here with Brewmaster monks specifically. They just got completely brutally nerfed in PvP, maybe deservingly so. But there's one team that I believe they did qualify to the gauntlet. It was Banks' team, I think.
the bots?
Maybe I'm mistaken on that. Yeah, did they qualify?
Oh,
it's a good question.
Maybe this is all for naught if they didn't. But for example, if they did, and then Brewmaster just got completely destroyed, that was their comp. So it's a similar situation.
I think they did actually. I think
Nope.
they might be like.
nope,
did
they're
not?
they're ninth. They're ninth in
okay.
EU.
It was close. I was
Yeah.
curious. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was my point.
No worries. Yeah, just because it was we didn't talk about it, but Brewmaster, their incendiary breath got and the radius and damage was decreased by 70%.
Yeah, I mean, it's just makes sense, really. Like it's like they shouldn't be doing. I mean, I'm not a fan of tanks personally in the meta. No, I think it's a wonderful pick. I think the fact that this is our counter pick to like assassination rogue comps, great. I love that. I think that's awesome, like in the competitive scene. But I think in general for the ladder and everything, it's not great when they're played. But I don't think they should have been brutalized the way that they were brutalized. And I also don't think that tournament realms should be experiencing the same sort of nerfs that we're getting. They should be kept on a 1-bit for a period of time until the end of it and then swapped.
I completely agree with that. I would say what's going to dictate that point for me as being a competitor previously, I think it would depend on the amount of time the teams have to adjust to it. Like if it's the week of, which is what we saw at the beginning of the cups, those changes, like some of those class changes, then I think that's a bit too soon. But then WoW is like a unique esport where a lot of the practice and scrimming happens on ladder, where in other games it's way easier, much easier to set up like war games between teams.
Yeah.
So that's something interesting to think about too.
Absolutely.
All right. One last piece of news. There's been a small discussion about the amount of bots that we're seeing in Arena. Apparently, it started off with I'm trying to remember who now. There was a clip where just randomly they throw their dome over to the side. Through the dome over, and instantly Ring of Peace happened right underneath it. Nowhere near the team was. It was like right out of the gates just for fun. I mean, they died obviously because now they didn't have they didn't have barrier, but whatever. And then
that's one of the clips of the expansion.
Yeah, it was chef kiss. It was perfect. And then this wonderful Rosito Jones was pointing out an elemental shaman. His name is TreesapJake on the left. I mean, no, his name was.
Okay. Oh no!
I'm kidding.
Got him.
You got him.
Done.
Yep. Yeah, he's actually a bot, folks. No. This other bot who was actually streaming, and I want to give a shout out to our listener Mortai, our friend. He was actually watching the stream. He was DMing me some information because I didn't have the time, and I guess the person had afterwards went back and deleted the stream, all the VODs, all the clips, and everything. But he was explaining how he was doing it. He was actually running Chat GPT, the AI, to then run the bot. So the AI was actually learning and improving the bot and he pushed over 3,300 CR on 2 LE shamans, if I'm not mistaken.
So I played in that guy's lobbies a lot.
Yeah.
He did a lot of damage, did not tremor me once, and I messaged him about it. And I asked, why didn't you tremor me? And he essentially said that he's new to LA Shaman and he's only been playing it for 2 months and he's not used to tremoring. Okay, so why are you at this rating? You can put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. Yep. So, I suspect he's going to be banned. But I will also point out Numbing, who is also a friend of the show, made another tweet showing a bit of information for the devs in case they didn't know about it. And I will shout out quickly to Holinka, who for Lent was giving up Twitter, but right before he did, he saw this and he replied back and just told the community, he's like, yo, yes, we got it. We know about it. We're working on it. It's not a simple fix. And they know about it. I mean, look how long Honor Buddy stuck around for. And that was... Every time they thought that they had it, Honor Buddy evolved and went around whatever fixes they put in to stop them. And I'm assuming the same thing is happening with this. So
you want to know something interesting that happened recently in
Sure.
that space? I believe Blizzard recently won a lawsuit against some people who created a bot for one of their games to set a precedent. So I would be careful if you're making those bot programs.
Actually, it was Honor Buddy.
There you go.
Yeah, they took Honor Buddy to court and they won, and got reparations paid.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to think about, like, you're talking about some very costly engineers that are having to software engineer around your cheats. So yeah, this isn't the days where you add an extra cartridge into your Nintendo 64 and are able to put in a cheat code or something, right? Like this is.
Nope.
Yeah.
If you have some AI, just playing better than you could.
Yeah, exactly. I think really I want to, as much as this pisses me off, as much as I'm like the idea of somebody using a bot and then, like you said, oh, I'm just new to, you're 3,300 CR and you're just new. No, you're just the rating and that ability to have that in that little feather in your cap means more than your integrity or anything else. Got it. But I have to commend that guy using Chat GPT and linking it in and turning it into a learning AI experience to then run the character at this most optimal. Well, I guess not really optimal because he wasn't tremoring, so obviously the AI still had lots to learn. I think that's actually pretty commendable, regardless of the rest of it. I think that was pretty cool.
You want to know something interesting?
Sure.
So the comp stomp brawl in Arathi Basin with the bots?
Yeah.
What I heard, and this could be true or not, is that the AI they developed for that, they had to turn it down in difficulty.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
So I feel like we're getting to a point where Blizzard is highly aware of stuff like this happening, and hopefully they're prepared for it. We'll see.
We'll see.
It's going to happen more and more in games these days.
Yep. I will say for the comp stomp brawl, as fun as that is to just PvE through it, those AI bots are also super annoying because there's no DR. Like you can't keep them CC'd. Like they just can auto trinket anything you do. So
like a bot.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think that's all we have for the news. I can't wait to hear your guys' thought on the cooldown moment. Yes, the cooldown moment. So we are here. We're going to talk about Avatar, the Arms Warrior version of this talent. So, I have it up on the screen here for those on the video, but it's an instant cast. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown. Transform into a Colossus for 20 seconds, causing you to deal 20% increased damage in everything you do, and removing all. Oh shoot, I can't even see that now. All roots and something. All roots and snares. Oh boy. Yeah, my screen was too small. Anyways, so obviously that really helps as a warrior. You pop that, you can't be slowed, you can't be held in place. You can still be CC'd, right? You can still have hard CC, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me clarify real quickly.
Oh, sorry.
It only removes the one, like when you press it, it removes your roots and snares, but you could be re-root and snare. I just want to clarify.
Thank you for that clarification. But then obviously after that, you're also a bit of a wrecking ball. You can warrior smash. I guess so. I mean, it's kind of clear how it helps. Right? It allows a person to break from those roots, break from a snare, be able to stay on target, and then do a bunch of extra damage along with any other buttons they're able to push after that. I think the real question is how do we as players play around that? So I guess, Born, I'm going to ask you first as a Holy Paladin or pretty much any other healer, from the healer spec point of view. How do you play around an Arms Warrior that just popped Avatar? Do you go into CC them again? Do you pop a cooldown of your own to then heal off, or do you tell your player they have to do a blow defensive, or do you not really worry about it because you know that it's not that imperative? Like, how imperative is it even?
I'm gonna give you the full lowdown. Okay,
give it to me.
So what you're kind of paying attention to with Avatar, so they actually have two ways to activate it, I believe. So they have the original ability, which is the 1.5 minute cooldown, and I believe they can also proc it with a talent off of, like, I think it's Blade Storm and one other thing. I think it might be Recklessness. It's like a % chance or something. Don't quote me on that. But kind of the idea is the proc Avatar, that's like a reduced duration and effectiveness. You don't really worry about it too much. If I'm remembering that talent correctly. And then the main ability, the 1.5 minute cooldown, essentially what they're going to usually use it on is like, maybe a Mage Frost Nova or like a Hunter Tar Trap or something, all right? And after they do that, what you're really looking to do is to re-slow or snare them so they feel like they're forced to Blade Storm. And if they kind of waste their Blade Storm as kind of like for mobility, instead of like using it as a damage ability, you're really like shutting them down. So if you ever see a warrior pop their main avatar, look to re-slow or snare them. That's like the most annoying thing for them. And you can't really do that as a Holy Paladin. So your only option, really, don't be near them.
Okay. So get the heck out of Dodge, basically.
Yeah.
And hope they don't have any leaps or anything to catch back up to you.
Yep.
Would you blow a Hodge on them?
So the thing with the thing you have to watch out for is that when they pop Avatar, I believe they have a chance to proc their Blade Storm. I'm pretty sure on that.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to, use your Crag Control into that. So, but after the Blade Storm ends, yeah, you can stun them, blinding light them, whatever is going to help. But just be careful that you don't use your Crag Control into their Blade Storm because you're going to be very sad and dead.
Okay. All right. Jake, how about you as a DPS player? As a squishy poor shaman, how do you deal with an Arms Warrior that just popped Avatar?
So as a squishy poor shaman, desperately in need of buffs. I think the thing is with warriors is that, in my experience, most of the warriors that I know, when they pop Avatar and you CC them, whether that's Hex or Lasso or something like that, they tend to trinket. So they trinket, that gets out of the way, and then you root them, and then you slow them. That's the only thing you can do. I have found that they get dispelled very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where most of the spells go into, kind of keeping the uptime on the warrior. And with the amount of charges and leaps you've got, and the way that obviously charge roots you, it can be. I find it quite difficult to get them off, me, and or whoever they're on. So but I think yeah, as kind of Borngood said, was just slows. I can spam Frost Shock as much as I can. If they haven't got any charge or leaps or anything like that, and I've got a knock, or let's say on Blaze Edge, I mean, if it's on Blaze Edge, it's kind of over for them. They are gone if they haven't got Heroic Leap, or even if they have got Heroic Leap, I can knock them twice. So it's one of those sort of situations, and I think that's kind of the only way you can really deal with it. I mean, it's a great ability, especially with the proc chance as well. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Something that was pointed out that that I was suspicious was right is that when they do pop that avatar, they get the 100% chance to proc a Blade Storm. So you have to wait for the Blade Storm to end.
Yeah, I think
Is what
so.
it is. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. That's good for they help keep us on the narrow, on the true and narrow. Yeah, I think that's really about it. Is it's try to stay away, try to keep the warrior away from being able to hit you, and just pray that you're able to do that until that cooldown goes down. I guess so. Assuming that you can't do that, assuming that maybe you're out of C, those slows or some of those other CCs that you need, or they have the ability to stay on top of you. I think for myself as a cloth wearer, I feel like the appropriate response for me would be to wall, or to do something that I know is going to help protect me from the onslaught that's about to hit me of a arms warrior and all of their fury that they're about to dump into me. So, okay.
I would say there's two reactions mostly. Let's say you're a warlock and the warrior pops avatar and he's blade storming on you. Your first reaction is not only a warlock, but like any class, if you have any mobility, because when they're blade storming, they can't really press any buttons because they're stuck in the blade storm, right? So the idea is to make them cancel. Actually, I don't even think you can cancel your proc blade storm anymore. I could be wrong, but yeah, mobility is the first option. The second option is what you said, is like use a defensive cooldown.
Okay. I like it. Well, so that was our cooldown moment talking about Avatar. Looking forward to doing other abilities as we move through future episodes. In the meantime, we're going to close this one out. I'm going to throw it first to you, Borngood. Is there any shout outs you'd like to give before we sign off?
Yeah, so, shout out to my other half, my fiance Nolly. She is the light of my life. I love her very much. And also shout out to the Blizzard dev team. You guys are killing it. You're doing what you can, and everyone can see you're really giving it a good effort. So thank you for. I think it's really a miracle that Soul Shuffle made it into the game, and it's one of my favorite game modes now of all time. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
And shout out to the WoW community. Wouldn't be here without all of you.
I like it. I forgot to mention earlier. Congratulations on the engagement, by the way. That is awesome.
Thank you.
That is totally awesome. I don't blame you. You guys, how many years have you been together now?
Gosh, it's gonna be
that many.
About
it's recorded now.
About 3.25 now, I would say.
Cool.
She did text me and heard that I was going after Sharpened Blade. Don't do anything to Sharpened Blade. Everything's good.
Yes, exactly. Because warrior main.
Well, we had her on. She was talking to us about Fury Warriors several episodes ago.
She did mention that to me.
Yeah. So it's great that we got the both. Now we've had both of the team has been on the show at least once. That's awesome. Jake, do you have any shout outs?
Oh, man. You know what? Every single week I try my hardest to rack my brains. I've shouted out everyone at this point. Who am I going to shout out? I'm going to shout out all the other Ellie Shamans. grinding out there. The grind set is real. Those who aren't botting, I salute you. Congratulations on playing it how it should be done. I'm going to shout out you guys. Obviously, my lovely community as well. Thank you so much for putting up with the fact that life is very tough and I can't always get my content out. But I appreciate you guys supporting me and sticking around. So thank you.
Indeed. Shout out to all the Ellie shamans that know how to use Tremor.
Yes. You guys are the real OGs. You're the actual gangsters out there.
Your healers will love you.
Yeah.
I love it. Last, I guess for me, I'm going to do a quick shout out again to SkillCapped. For all those who don't remember, there's actually an affiliate link that they have for us. If you go to skillcap.com/wow/pricing/plans, #technically PvP, all one word, you'll get a discount off of their subscription service to all of their wonderful content, which I will say is building up quite nicely for Dragonflight. Even with all these changes, they're actually able to stay on top of it for the most part. And highly recommend you go check them out. And if you don't want to pay for the expensive stuff, they do have some free stuff on their website, and they always have their YouTube channel, which our friend Big helps make and provide. Last, I guess, I know you mentioned at the beginning, always like to mention at the end, Born, where can people find you on these wonderful interwebs?
Shout out to my Twitter, BorngoodW, twitch.tv/Borngood. Find me on Twitch. And yeah, you can hit me up on Discord anytime. Borngood number 8396. That's pretty much where you can find me.
Awesome. I like that you're open like that you allow people to have that information to ping you and ask you all the wonderful questions about Holy Paladin.
Knowledge is here to share.
Yeah. Just going to quickly add Borngood now that I've got.
Nice.
There we go. Done. I've said
There
it.
you go.
There we go. So if I ever play Holy Paladin, I know who I'm messaging. So.
Yeah, there we go.
Jake, do you want to read off the last little bits of the show and then we'll get out of here?
Yes, I can absolutely. So if you want to contact us directly, you can with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. And obviously you can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord. And if you want to as well, you can visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at www.bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so make sure you go over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows, including ours.
Indeed. Especially ours. Please.
Especially
five stars minimum.
minimum.
As always, links for everything we talked about. It's going to be in the show notes. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you, Born, for joining us. And I want to say good night to all. See you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.